I'm not exaggerating when I say that this episode is absolute gold. And yes, this is a podcast about podcasting. You don't have to start a podcast to get your message out there in front of new audiences and your ideal clients. Instead, you can plan and book a targeted and effective podcast tour. Have you heard of this? If you have a business, your number one job is to get eyeballs on it. I'm always saying this. Enter podcasting. Don't underestimate yourself. Chances are that you are more than ready to conquer the world of podcasting than you realize. Founder of Hell Yes Media, Kelly Moser, is our fabulous guest in this episode to break down the nitty gritty of booking a successful podcast tour as a business owner. This is her bread and butter, and she shares her top tips, advice, and genius with us so that we can go out and take advantage of podcasting too. This episode will answer how to know that it's time to plan and book your first podcast tour, how to set your podcast tour up for success, how to pitch yourself to podcasts who don't know you yet, how to be the best podcast guest that you can be, and how to ensure that your episode is a success after it's published. Once we do the thing, we're not done with it. And more. It's time to take your message on the road. Pack your mic. Let's go on tour. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this incredible conversation that we're about to have on podcasting. I have heard from more than one source that podcasting is going to be the number one channel of the year. Everyone's talking about social media and what's going to happen with TikTok and all the different platforms, but podcasting is absolutely here to stay. And there is big influence, big money, big opportunity there. And so if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, you absolutely want to be thinking about podcasting, whether it's you hosting your own podcast or you going on to someone's podcast. And there's something new that I heard about from Kelly, our very special guest, who I'll introduce in just a moment, called a podcast tour. I had not heard of this before. She introduced this to me, and I am so excited to for her to share what this is and how you can use this to leverage your business. So let's get into it. Welcome, Kelly.
Rachel, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored and excited to share this conversation.
Absolutely. This is going to be so valuable to people. I just know it. So, I want to introduce formally Kelly so that you all know her magic, who she is, and how to find her because you're going to want to find her absolutely after this conversation. So, Kelly Moser is the founder of Hell Yes Media, a consultancy that helps bold, badass brands create invincible content through profitable podcast tours and adjacent media. Kelly and her team are obsessed with helping founders that belong to historically underrepresented groups explode their thought leadership and go from hidden gem to booked out industry expert. Kelly's also the host of the Top 1% podcast. Congratulations, Aligned
Thank you.
Success. This is amazing. She lives in New York City with her husband and rescue dog Tully. And we met on TikTok or via TikTok, really, which is amazing. And we had an amazing conversation about podcast tours. Definitely one is coming soon in my future. And I'm just so happy you're here. So thank you again and welcome.
I'm such a fan of your TikTok content that when we connected, I was like, oh my gosh, this woman in the midheaven like completely changed my life. So you are just amazing. I'm so grateful to be
Oh,
here with you.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, that platform has been amazing for me. Last year, in 2024, I really made a conscious effort to build my TikTok. I just knew that that was going to be a huge, place to meet my community and to bring people into my work. And now this year, I'm like, okay, it's podcasting. So yeah, we got to become experts, and that's what entrepreneurs do, right? We shift, we pivot, we figure out what's next and what's going to work
Yes.
for us. So we have
Yes.
a list of amazing questions for you. I want to get started on kind of the obvious one. Why go on a podcast tour and what can it do for your business? Tell us about that.
Yes. So, like you mentioned, podcasting is here to stay. The industry is growing so quickly and so sustainably. It's not growing in the sense that I feel like it's a bubble and it's going to burst. It's growing in a
Hmm.
really slow but steady consistent way that I feel really good about. It's also algorithm free, which I think is a big pain point for a lot of entrepreneurs who know they need to do marketing for their business. They know they
Mhm.
need to create content. You will not find the same algorithm frustration with podcasting that you find on other social platforms. So, for that reason, it's a no brainer because in my bio, as Rachel mentioned, we talk a lot about invincible content. Invincible content is the kind that doesn't die. So an algorithm will eventually squash whatever content you put out there unless it goes viral and keeps going and going and going. But with podcasting, there is no algorithm to suppress it. So an interview that you do next month is some people are going to listen to it right away. More people are going to listen to it in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, in the next 3 years. So it's a way to create assets, content assets that don't get algorithm squashed and that just keep growing over time, which is not something that you see with other platforms.
Yeah, that's really rare with content creation nowadays, right? It's like we kind of feel like we're being batted about by trends or hashtags or what, whatever's going on. You make such a good point there. And I've noticed that in my numbers as well. I've only done 1 year of podcasting so far, but I go back and they're growing every time I look at them for even, going back to the first episodes. So that kind of legacy and kind of, it's like it's a gift you're giving to your people. It can keep growing. I love that. So what can going on a tour really do for your business? Like, what have you seen it do with your clients and opportunities and all the things? What can we look forward to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I recommend doing it as kind of a tour. So the reason I recommend it as a tour is the same reason you see an author do a book tour or a cast do a press tour leading up to a
Hmm.
movie. You create a lot of momentum in a short amount of time. And what that does is it just gets you on people's radars in a way that they start paying attention. If they hear you on one podcast, that's great. If they hear you on 10 podcasts within like a 4 week time period, now they're really curious. Now they're really starting to say, okay, Rachel's doing something really interesting and I need to pay attention because she's not just doing this as a one off thing. She has got the buy in and the trust of all of these other authorities, all these other, people with these amazing platforms that want her to come on and contribute to their show. So it's a great way to create a splash in a short amount of time. That said, you don't have to go on the biggest podcast in the world in order for this to be really impactful for your
Mhm.
business. You can go on podcasts that are, ranked in the top 10%. That's great. That means that show is established. People are listening to it every week. You don't have to be on the Mel Robbins podcasts of the world to see a
That
really
is,
great
wait, this
result
is
from
so
this. No, go
funny.
ahead.
This is so funny that you said Mel Robbins because I was going to interject and say I've noticed Mel Robbins is on a podcast tour right now
Yes,
because
yes,
she's
for her
popping
book.
up everywhere. She's on Diary of a CEO. She's on Scott Galloway's podcast. She's everywhere. So that's so funny that you mentioned that. I love that.
Yes, and if you pay attention to the thought leaders that look up to and admire in your space, you will see that if they have a book coming out or if they have a new offer that they're launching or new membership, they do a podcast tour because it is such a good way to get in front of a lot of eyeballs in a short amount of time without leaving your house. You can do it from your living room,
Yeah.
which is a reason why it's just so impactful. And if you're doing a podcast tour, you can expect an influx of visibility. You can expect, if you're doing it the right way with the right strategy, you can expect an influx of leads. Whatever your goal is, I do recommend building your podcast tour around kind of one goal. So maybe for you, that's promoting a new podcast or promoting your book or promoting an offer that you are launching or relaunching or you're opening the doors. If you build it around one specific goal, you're going to see the best possible results. And maybe we can get
Mm-hmm.
into that a little bit more in terms of what that strategy should look like. But you pick a goal, you build your podcast tour around that goal, you go on podcasts that are the right fit for what you're trying to do. So you're trying to reach ideal clients, or if you're launching a book, you're trying to reach ideal readers, or you're launching a podcast, you're looking to reach ideal listeners. And as long as you're in front of the right people with the right content, you can absolutely expect really tangible ROI to come off the back end of these interviews that you're doing, whether that's opt-ins, downloads, readers, people purchasing your book, people, booking sales calls with you, whatever that is for you, your podcast tour will help you do that and get a lot more eyes on what you're trying to do.
I love that. That's great advice to help people to really focus in on their goals and what they're trying to achieve, which is quite different from maybe a strategy on TikTok, which might be to throw things at the wall and see what sticks for a while until you find your signature. With a podcast or a podcast tour, you need to put more kind of thoughtfulness and intention and strategy into it from the beginning before you even start. And I think that's a really great reminder. This kind of ties into the next question of how do you know you're ready for a podcast tour? Probably you have a plan, I guess, but do you have any other indicators that you would, or I guess measures that you would ask people to think about? Like, are you ready to pitch yourself? Are you ready to go for it?
Yeah, most people wait too long. They think, I'm
Oh,
not ready yet. I'm not, I don't have the best-selling book yet. They think of doing a podcast tour and really any visibility strategy. I see this a lot. People think of visibility as a reward for the
yes.
success that you've
Yes.
created,
Oh,
when
that's so
really
smart.
it's a
Hmm.
tool. It's a tool. You're not going to create that success unless you are visible enough for people to find you. So that's like one thing that you really need to just flip the switch in your mind right now. It's not a reward for the success you've already created and all the people you've already helped. It's a tool to help you get in front of more clients, more readers, more listeners, because that's where that ultimate result is going to come from, is getting in front of enough people. So I
Hmm.
like to think, as long as you know who you're helping, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got that offer in place. Bonus points if you've had like 5 people go through that offer and get a great result, then you really know. And that gives me confidence to say you really know your stuff, you really know what you're talking about, and you're going to see better results from your podcast tour if you have that set up. But beyond that, you can run different kinds of podcast tours. You can run one that's just a brand building tour where your goal is just to get out there, get people to know your name. You don't have to focus on conversions and sales for every podcast tour. But you do need people to start learning who you are. If you want to help the world needs to know your name. They need to know where to find you. So it's really never too late to at least start pitching yourself. Your proposals might change over time as you focus on different things in your business. But if your goal is to get your name out there, get it out there as soon as possible, as long as you've got kind of somewhere to send people afterwards. So as long as you've got something in place, you've got an offer in place, you know who you want to help, that's important because then it's just going to help you see better results from your tour.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And I'm just like, that's the clip. I've got to frame that. The people think of visibility as a reward. That is a mic drop right there because they really do. They think,
Yeah.
oh, once I'm good enough, I think especially women. I mean, I don't know about you, but most of my clients are women, and we're just very conditioned that like we can't get the reward, we can't get the appreciation or the whatever it is until we've like paid our dues and like struggled and we're not good enough. And that's a great reminder. Thank you, Kelly, for that. I love that.
Yeah. It's like, where do you
Mhm.
think those clients are going to come from?
Yes,
They've got to
exactly.
find you somewhere.
How do you get success? You just go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you have to be seen. This is so, so major. I love that. This episode is brought to you by Cosmic Queen's signature human design foundation course, The Design. Now, if you are familiar with this podcast, you're probably familiar with the system of human design. At least you've heard of it. Most people out there have not heard of it. It is such an incredible system for understanding not only our personality, but our energy, how we can strategize, how we use our energy in work, in life, in relationships, how we connect to other people, how we were specifically designed to be magnetic. And the system of human design uses astrology, the chakra system, the I Ching, and the Kabbalah tree of life all rounded into one. What I love about this system is that it is very effective, very laser focused in on what you need, and it gives you more of the how. When I worked with astrology, I love astrology as well. It's my first love, right? I love astrology. Astrology gives you the what and the why, but not always the how. Human design gives you these really clear, step by step processes for how you make the best decisions, how you best connect with your ideal clients and your people, how you best work day to day in your business, and on and on and on and on. It's so practical, and that's why I'm obsessed with it. And I think that's why a lot of you are obsessed with it. If you are a coach, a mentor, a guide, a practitioner of some kind, and you want to be the most effective that you can be for your people, consider learning human design and really diving deep into the system. So, we've just released this course as an on demand video course. It used to be live and now it's on demand. So that means that you can dive in anytime you want and go at your own pace. There are 16 video modules included. There is a lot of practical application that I've included to career and relationships. So it's not just the system. It's like, well, How do I apply this to my business? How do I apply this to my career? How do I apply this to understanding the people around me, my kids and parenting, et cetera, et cetera? There are workbooks and cheat sheets and quizzes and all of these different things. But the question I want to answer right now, really quickly for you, is why now? There are a lot of reasons why now. One of them is that we have the ultimate human design nerd out, nerdathon coming up on June 23rd. When you sign up now for my human design course, I'm including 3 live Q&As with me where we get to totally nerd out on the system. We can answer any questions you have. We can look at live charts and have a grand old time. It's great learning this on your own, but by being able to ask me questions, you get to really integrate and have a deeper understanding of what it is that you're looking at and learning in the system. But really, my biggest reason why now, there are so many different reasons we can talk about. There's some special offers on now. You can check the sales page for that. There's the fact that 2025 is a year of shedding what doesn't serve us. It's the end of a 9-year cycle, and human design is incredible for identifying and clarifying what's not in alignment. So it helps us to stop wasting our time, to avoid burnout and all these other things. But the big one that motivates me and that might also motivate you right now is that your community needs this insight badly. I know I don't have to explain how lost and hopeless a lot of people feel right now with the political and the economic landscape. I know that you see it and you feel it in your own communities. The antidote to fear is action. But a lot of people don't know what action it is that they need to take. They don't know what their role is. They don't know what their purpose is or how they can help. They just feel kind of helpless and stuck. They're stuck spinning on the problem instead of activating their own unique magic to take the aligned action that's needed. Human design aura types reveal more of your role. Human design centers reveal your personal recipe for power and wisdom. Human design profile lines show you how you best help the world. With this clarity, your people can put that anxious energy to good use and be a force for good in uncertain times. This is why I have to keep telling you guys about how incredible this system of human design is. It is the fastest way that I have found to unblock, unstick, awaken, harness, and activate the magic and complexity of who you are. Join us inside the design. June is a great time to join because you get to be part of our nerd out on June 23rd. But if you're listening to this episode at any time, message me if you have any questions, and I can help you figure out if this is the right course for you. All right, now back to our episode.
I love also that you kind of shared that there are different types of tours. You mentioned brand building or sales as being like 2 examples of your goals or why you would want to go on a tour. What makes you a good guest on the flip side? So you have a strategy, you know you're ready to go. You've realized that, you don't have to wait until everything's perfect, but you've got an offer there and you've got a plan. Now, why would they want you to come on their show? What makes you a good guest?
What's going to make you a good guest is a couple of things. One, you have to lead with a conversation that is so exciting for that podcast. They've not had a conversation like this before because a podcast top priority is to bring their audience content that they're going to come back and listen to that podcast every week or every 2 weeks or however often they drop an episode. The content has to be so good that it's going to draw that audience back and press play right away as soon as that episode drops. So if you can present one conversation that fills a gap in what that podcast is already talking about, but the audience is going to benefit so much from it, you have to lead with that conversation. So most people, when they're pitching to a podcast, they'll say, oh, I can come on and talk about, for my podcast, I get a lot of pitches that say I can come on and talk about sales or marketing or email list growth or client retention or, 5 other things. You don't want to lead with that many options because it's going to make the host go, well, I don't know what this person's really the expert in. There's so many different conversations we could have within these 10 topics that they just presented to me. You have to lead as the guest. You have to lead and say, this is my very best conversation that I can have. I know it's going to help your audience in these really tangible and specific ways so that the only decision that host has to make is, yes, I want this person coming on to talk about this conversation, or no, I don't. Not the mental labor of, okay, here's 12 topics. What's the conversation we need to have? What's she going to be able to answer questions about? So that's really the most important thing, is to present one specific conversation that you know is going to be a home run for you, a home run for the audience, and a home run for the show. The second thing I'll say is the second priority for a podcast is to make sure that their show is continuing to grow. So as a guest, you can actually help them with that goal. If
Mhm.
you, in your proposal, map out exactly what you're going to do to help make the episode a success after it gets released. So I'm going to bring it to my, 5 different platforms. I've got this many people on my email list, and I've got, this many people following me on TikTok or LinkedIn. If you can be really explicit about how and where you're going to share that episode,
Mhm.
even if you don't have a big platform, this is something really important, because a lot of people will say to me, I don't have a big email list. I don't have, a huge following on TikTok or on Instagram. Doesn't matter. If you can share the episode with 20 people that you actually know in real life, that is more effort than most people are willing to put in after a podcast goes live. So if you just
Mhm.
demonstrate to the host that you're willing and able and excited to put in that effort, even if your audiences are small, that goes so much farther than someone with 100,000 followers never sharing the episode anywhere. So as long as you can demonstrate that you're going to be a great guest, you're going to do a lot of promotion to make sure the episode gets discovered by new people, because those new people that listen to that episode can become loyal fans of that podcast that come back week after week.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It's like you're leveraging, it's a win-win, right? You want it to be a
Exactly.
win-win for everyone. It's win for you because you're getting your work out there, you're being visible, and you're getting in front of a new audience, but it's also a win for them because you have an audience and you have a great topic to offer. And I just have to say, I love when you said don't pitch too many options. I was laughing to myself because that is so me. We talk about, yeah, with my business clients, we talk about niching a lot. And my understanding, I'd love your expertise on this, is that with podcasts need to be more niched compared to maybe other social media platforms. I think that speaks to like YouTube as well, because a lot of podcasts go onto YouTube. You want to have a channel or a podcast that is very specific. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying here, so that you're not just, yeah, it's like they don't
Yeah,
know what to invite you back for and what you're known for, and all of that. Is that kind
exactly.
of what you're
When you're
saying?
creating your own platforms, I think it's important to have a niche, but you have more flexibility. You can talk
Yeah.
about a few different topics. When
Mhm.
you're trying to fit yourself into somebody else's content strategy,
Mhm.
you've got to be filling a gap that they have not covered, and not being too general, not competing with the other content that they have on that platform already. So you've got to think about, where do I fit in the scope of what this platform is already covering? And maybe they've talked about a lot. Because if you pitch something they've talked about 10 times, they don't want to have another conversation about that. They want to have a new conversation. So that's what I mean by really figuring out what your niche is, so that it's a seamless and easy yes, because they're
Mhm.
thinking, oh, we actually haven't talked about that yet. Or maybe we have talked about it, but this person's presenting a new perspective or a new modality or a new
Mhm.
tool, a new, philosophy that's really going to benefit my audience. So you're really looking to supplement what's already being done on that platform.
That makes sense. And I think that for those listening who don't have a super tight niche in their business, I think that the way that you can think of this is just as Kelly was saying, you have a purpose for this tour. So if your purpose is to sell a particular program that you're doing, so for example, like if I'm selling my Rising Star Business Academy, I'm only going to be talking about how do I help people start businesses. I'm not going to talk about necessarily my productivity work or my relationship work or my parenting work. I'm not going to talk about any of those other things, even though I do offer those for this tour, because that's the thing that I'm selling as well. So maybe that's a good tip for people, is like whatever you are selling, obviously you want to connect that to your core message so that it's just a really seamless, pitch and message.
Exactly. Exactly. You want to create that seamless pipeline from the content they hear during the episode
Mm.
to the call to action that you're offering them, to where you ultimately want them to end up. And you can run multiple podcast tours in your
Yes.
lifetime. You could run 2 or 3 podcast tours a year. So don't feel like you are committing to this and you can never talk about anything else. It's just, if
Mhm.
that's, think about your goal. If you want to create the best results possible to support that goal, be a little bit more specific in the content that you're proposing.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I love this. These are gold. These tips, everyone. I hope you're all taking notes. This is
I'm
fantastic.
so glad.
So is there any other, you gave us so much there. Are there any other tips that just have come to your mind about pitching yourself to people who don't know you, who've never heard of you? One of the things that I really appreciated about our conversation when we first were talking about, maybe working together on a podcast tour was you talk about hidden gems, right? And I love that term. I did a master class once called hidden gems because I'm also really passionate about helping people become visible, and I sometimes think of myself as a hidden gem, even though now on TikTok maybe not so much, but you actually said no, actually you're further along than you think, and you've already got things put together. Is there anything else, I don't know, that kind of in that I just said that makes you think of more reasons why someone would be a great guest, even if they're not that known, right?
People always, 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 especially because almost all of my clients are women, they always underestimate their leverage. They always
Mm-hmm.
underestimate the level of show that they could, book right now. They underestimate the size of the audience that they could be reaching. So there's a couple different things to keep in mind when you're thinking about your leverage, because your leverage is ultimately what gets you booked, but your leverage doesn't have to just be the size of your audience, right? That can look like a lot of different things. So your
Mm-hmm.
leverage can be your level of experience. There are some people who have been doing their work for 10 years. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have any online audience, but they've got an incredible resume of work and proven results that they know they can, speak to.
So
That's
true.
leverage. If you have your own podcast or you have a platform like a book, or you have a high value asset like a course, that's also leverage. Things that you've created and you've put out in the world that you can stamp your name on and say, this is mine. That is also leverage. Your leverage can also be the communities where you're connected. So even if you don't own those communities, right? If you're a part of 5 different communities and you're just a member, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
thousand people in each of those communities, that's leverage because you have access to more people. So just thinking about kind of the things that you might not realize can really work in your favor. If you've ever been mentioned in the media, that's also leverage. All of these things help just signal to a podcast, I know what I'm talking about. I'm well connected. I have the ability to get this podcast episode in front of people, and I have connections that maybe I could tap back into in the future. That is all leverage. So if you write all of that stuff down, I always like to kind of ask my students to write down, what are 5 places that you're connected right now that you could tap into if you wanted to, even if you don't own those spaces? Make a list of all of your experience, all the results that you've gotten for your clients. All of that is leverage. It can all work in your favor to get booked.
Makes so much sense. I love that. So now you're on your tour, you're doing the things, you're getting booked, you're speaking, you're sharing everything. How do you, and I think you spoke to this a little bit, but how do you ensure that your podcast or podcast tour is benefiting your business? Is there anything like after the episode comes out that you've got to make sure that you do? You mentioned promoting it, anything like that that you want to share with us?
Yeah. So one thing I'll say is at the end of the episode where the host is almost always going to ask you, where can we, learn more about you? Where can we learn
Mm-hmm.
more about what you do? 99 times out of 100, someone is going to say, oh, just go to my TikTok, go to my Instagram, go to my website.
Mm,
That call to action might work really well for you on email. It might work really well for you on social media. But because of the nature of the podcasting platform, when someone's listening to a podcast, they're usually not holding their phone in their hand. They're usually not
mm,
looking at their phone. They're not ready to click a button right now. So what you offer them at the end of that episode has to be so compelling that they might actually consider pulling over if they're driving, or they might consider putting the weights down if they're at the gym, or they might consider like stopping on the dog walk to take the action that you're giving them, the invitation to. So wherever you're sending them after that episode has to be really, really good. And it's got to be a little bit more than just follow me on social or go to my, join my subscriber list.
mhm,
Why? What's waiting for them there? What is the type of content that you're sharing? What's the value proposition for someone that's listening that's going to make them want to go and follow you? So maybe it's, you know, sending them to a masterclass that you have, or inviting them to book a consult with you. Or if you're going to send them to your podcast, send them to a specific episode that's really going to benefit them based on this conversation that they just heard. So if you know they liked this conversation, the next step for them is going to be to go and listen to this one specific episode. Or if you do a series on TikTok where you talk about something that would be considered the next step based on what they just heard, send them there, but make sure that they know what they're going to get if they go there, because the call to action is just harder. It's just harder to get people to convert when they're not looking at their phone. So you got to make sure that wherever you're sending them is compelling enough that they would stop what they're doing, or that they'll remember to come back to it later.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm already thinking as you're talking about, a really compelling message or a really compelling freebie or a really, going down, like if you were talking about productivity, go and download my productivity guide so you can get started tomorrow on making your life more organized, right? It's something that they're like, yes, 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 I need this now. And it directly connects to what you've been saying. Is that kind of?
Exactly. It's the next step for them. So it's not a repeat of everything you just talked about. It's a
Yes.
next step, but it's going to help them get some results right away. Absolutely.
Ooh, I love that. That's such a good, I'm going to circle that as well. A next step. I think that's a great
Mm-hmm.
way of thinking of it. So what big mistakes do you see people make? How can we avoid the big mistakes that people make with their podcast tours or with the way that they present themselves? Is there anything that you notice it's like a common thing?
Yeah, one thing that's really common is the show selection strategy.
Oh,
So, what I
okay.
mean by this is if you end up on a podcast that's not really the right fit, it's not going to be the most profitable for you. So, I want to make sure that you're going on podcasts that are the right fit for you. One mistake that I see a lot that is actually really counterintuitive. So, I'll use your work, Rachel.
Oh,
You're an
sure.
astrologer.
Yes.
There are astrologers out there that I've spoken to who say, well, I should go on shows about astrology, right? And
Right.
my first instinct is no, you should not go on shows about astrology, because 9 times out of 10, the host of a podcast about astrology has some sort of offerings that might look similar to
Yeah.
yours. And as much as I love to believe we live in a world where everyone wants to collaborate all the time, the reality is that that host might look at your work and say, a little too close to what I do. And
Mhm.
you might not get booked because of that. And I would hate for that to happen. But
Mhm.
as an astrologer, you can offer so much value to so many different types of podcasts where you can be the resident go to astrologer. They're not
Yeah.
having an astrologer on the podcast every other week, right? And the
Mhm.
host is not an astrologer. So again, you're looking to think about where can I supplement the show and where can I supplement the host's expertise? Where does that host expertise end that they can then outsource some of the knowledge that they don't have to me? So if you're,
Mhm.
a healer, you might not want to go on podcasts that talk about healing every single week. If you're a therapist, you might not want to go on podcasts that are hosted by other therapists.
Yes.
So think about where is the kind of adjacent, where's my audience hanging out? Where is my ideal client? What podcasts are they listening to? But where can I really be the first and last person that's talking about my topic? What are those podcasts? So that's one thing that I see a lot of people do. You're going to get booked more often, and you're going to see better conversions if you are the go-to person on a podcast and not one of 100 other people that are talking about the same
Mhm.
topic that you are.
Yeah, that's so smart. That makes so much sense. It's such an obvious thing, but I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that because I think a lot of times we think of going to places where it's familiar, there's complete
Exactly.
audience crossover, we speak the same language, but actually, if you really want to stand out, you got to stand out, right? Like, you've got to be the go-to. I love
Yep.
that. Thank you. Any other
Yep.
big mistakes that kind of come to mind? That was a great one.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is just in the vein of choosing the right podcast, you really want to choose podcasts that let you be an expert, that let you really teach something. So there's kind of like two sort of groups of podcasts out there in the world. And in every niche, no matter if your niche is health and wellness or spirituality or, um, you know, business and entrepreneurship, within each of those niches, there's kind of two buckets of shows. There are your storytelling podcasts and there are your educational podcasts. You
Mm,
always, if your goal is, I want people to come and work with me and get into my world and get on my email list, you're always going to want to choose the more educational podcasts. If you end up on podcasts that just are about storytelling, you're not going to get asked enough questions or the right questions to be able to demonstrate that you really are an expert. Your story is very important. It's a very important part of your brand, but you want to be weaving storytelling into your teachings
mm,
rather than going on a show that will only let you tell your story, because you're just not going to see the ROI that you're probably wanting to see if you're going to put the time and energy into doing this, if you're
mhm.
just going on shows that are all about storytelling. And you can usually determine which kind of show it is based on the show description. So if you go to Apple Podcasts or you go to Spotify, If you find a podcast that you're interested in, read the description and it will tell you. It's either going to be we are helping, moms figure out how to be a better parent. That's a teaching show. If it says we're looking to connect and hear stories from moms who have gone through, difficult times and have come out better on the other side, that's a storytelling show. So just look for those little clues in the description and always be choosing shows that let you teach and be an expert.
Mm, so good. So wise. I love these tips. I feel like we're so much better prepared after listening to you. This is
Oh, I'm
great.
so glad. I'm so glad.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you so much. I just appreciate you taking the time to speak to us, giving us so much of your wisdom and advice. Are there any other tips that you'd like to share before we close about specifically thinking about podcast newbies? So people who are new to the circuit or new to podcasting.
Yeah, I would say tap your network first. Look at your communities where you're already really present, where you feel comfortable with people, and see what are the podcasts that might be already operating in the communities where you're already a part of, because a personal connection is always a wonderful way to, kind of speed up the process of getting booked onto a podcast. So look at your personal connections first, figure out what shows your audience is listening to where you might already have a connection and start there. Start small. It's okay if you're not on a top 0.01% podcast your first time. It's
Mm,
good to kind of get some of the nerves out and just get
yes,
familiar with the platform and what it's like to talk into a microphone and what it's like talking to an audience that can't see you. So start
yes.
small, get comfortable, and then you can always work your way up.
I love that. It's totally a skill as well. And as you get better at it, as you do more, as you get more comfortable, you're obviously going to get better at it. And then it's just going to flow from there. And I'm sure it also somewhat works like media as well, as once you get on some podcasts, then people hear about you and they want to book you for other things. That's how it's worked for me with summits. I'm about to starting tomorrow, I'm booked out in summits for the next 3, 4 months. And it's just word of mouth. It's because I was in a couple of summits when I first started my business, 6 years ago. And then it's consistent. Almost every month I'm asked. And I bet it's the same with podcasts, would you say?
It absolutely is. And podcast hosts listen to other podcasts. It's like if you're in the podcasting
Yeah.
world, you love listening to podcasts. So in any audience, there's going to be some podcast hosts in that audience as well. If you
Mhm.
give a great episode, they're going to want to reach out to you. And then when someone sees that you've been on 5 great podcasts, they're going to want you on their show. So it is absolutely creates this flywheel effect of more opportunities. You just got to start somewhere and
Yes.
trust that the doors will open.
I love that. Oh, it's such a good message. Thank you so much for giving us these tips. And also, I love your energy. I love like the spirit of encouragement too, that we don't have to be hidden gems anymore. We get to discover what our invincible content is, go out there and get our work seen. It's so inspiring. How can people find you? Of course, we need to know how can we find you and how can they work with you?
Thank you so, so much for having me. I've just enjoyed our conversation so much. I love the work that you're doing, and I just feel like we're kind of kindred spirits.
Mhm.
Yes, if this conversation inspired you and you want to start booking more podcast interviews, my team actually does strategy consults, and I would love for you to book one with us. On your consult, we cover 3 things: your positioning, we cover the types of podcasts that are going to be the best fit for you. And we kind of map out your podcast tour from a bird's eye view because we know what's going on in every niche, in every different industry. We know where your content is oversaturated and where it's really high in demand. And we can help you kind of map out the fastest route to a calendar full of podcast interviews that you're really excited about and help you also tailor the back end to make sure that any interviews that you do are leading to the ROI that you want to see for your business. So maybe I can share the link with you
Yes,
for
I
if
will put
somebody
the
wants
link
to
in
book
the
one of
show
those.
notes and
Perfect.
underneath this module, wherever people are seeing this. Yeah, I will absolutely share the link to that and then also the link to your website as well. Mhm.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we hope to get to chat with you on a consult soon.
Yes, amazing. Everyone go and follow Kelly on social media too. Keep up to date with her and all the fabulous things she's doing. Truly inspiring in your industry and just seeing another powerhouse woman in business doing the things and supporting other people as they rise. I love to see it. And thank you so much again, Kelly.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, everyone.